Oh, it is open season on this movie. Predator 2 is next.
It landed in the world's most forbidding jungle. It came for the thrill of the hunt. Now, it's coming to a different kind of jungle.
You don't know what you're dealing with.
This time, it's open season on All of Us. Danny Glover, Gary Busey, Reuben Blades, Maria Conchita Alonso, Bill Paxton. Predator 2. Hunting season opens again this Christmas.
Welcome to Fantasy Picks Movie Edition, the podcast where we review movies that were overhyped but did not make it in the box office or was a critical failure. In some cases, they do succeed with both, but not with hardcore fans. I'm your host, Robert Moda, and with me I have Ralph Levy today. How's it going, Ralph?
Not too bad, Rob. How's everything going with you?
Today we're going to be discussing the movie Predator 2. And the latest Predator movie is called Prey, which is out on Hulu. Has a tie-in to this movie. You haven't seen Prey yet, right?
No, but I'm pretty excited to watch it. I've heard nothing but good things and pretty hyped up to watch it.
Yeah, no, I was actually very surprised. I have not been a fan of Dan Trachtenberg's movies that he has done. But this one, I have to say, was actually pretty good. I did like the way that they portrayed this Predator, and I like the story. The story is actually very good. So, yeah, I would say you definitely could catch that. I don't know if you've been told about what ties it together.
No, but I could only imagine. Does it have anything to do with the ending?
Yes.
With the pistol?
With the pistol. Yep, that's exactly it.
Okay.
So... I guess the question would be, and this is spoilers for anybody who has not seen the movie yet, but I guess the question would be, how did the Predator, because the Predator, she got her hands on the pistol from one of the settlers there or something like that. And then she used it on the Predator and she kept it. So the question is, how did the Predators get that pistol back? So that's going to be a very interesting thing to see, to look out for if they do a part 2.
Yeah, that's the only thing I really picked out when I was watching it. This has to be at least the 4th or 5th time I've seen this movie in my life, but fortunately, it's the first time I've seen it since probably 1993. I picked up on the pistol, and I hoped, and I'm glad that you confirmed that does tie into the new movie on Hulu.
Yeah, no, it was interesting. I thought it was a cool thing to do. It's just, unfortunately, it ties it into what some people call the worst, one of the worst movies of the Predator franchise, which is. And here's the one thing that I would say. For some reason, there are certain movies that are iconic and movies that are just, will stay with us forever and they're timeless. But then the sequels to that are just horrible. Predator, I feel like, is one of those where up until now has not had a very good sequel. I mean, there's been Predator 2, there's been The Predators, there's been Predators, Alien vs. Predator, Alien vs. Predator Requiem, I think. All of them have been horrible for me. And it's the same thing with Aliens, the Alien franchise. Besides Cameron's Aliens, the second movie, everything else after that just kind of killed it. Jaws is one of those where, the first movie is iconic until this day, considered one of the best, movies out there in cinema history. But yet, once you go to Jaws 2, 3, and the rest of the garbage that has come out, it's just pretty horrible. And there's quite a few movies out there that I think one of these days we're going to cover the movies that had a good first or second part, but then the rest just kind of tanked the franchise. So, but yeah, so I mean, we could get started on this. So Predator 2 is a 1990 American science fiction horror film, or horror action film. Let's just call it that. Written by the brothers Jim and John Thomas, directed by Stephen Hopkins, starring Danny Glover, Gary Busey, Ruben Blades, Maria Conchita Alonso, Bill Paxton, and Kevin Peter Hall as the Predator. It is the second installment in the Predator franchise, serving as the sequel to the 1987 Predator, with Kevin Peter Hall reprising his role as the Predator. Set 10 years after the events of the first film in Los Angeles. The film focuses on the Predator, a technology-advanced extraterrestrial hunter, and the efforts of a disgruntled police officer and his allies to defeat the creature. So at the time of release of the film received generally negative reviews and earned a moderate return on the box office. So grossing about $57 million out of a $20 to $30 million budget. Compared to the previous film, which did $98 million gross on a smaller production budget. So a bigger budget and did not take in as much as the first. This would be the last film appearance of the Predator until the 2004's crossover film Alien vs. Predator, followed in 2007 by Alien vs. Predator Requiem, a sequel called Predators, which actually takes place in a different planet, and that was released in 2010, followed by The Predator in 2018, and the prequel now, Prey, in 2022. This movie takes place in the backdrop of Los Angeles instead of a jungle during the middle of one of the largest heat waves to hit California, and a turf war between heavily armed Colombians and Jamaican drug cartels. So what are your initial thoughts of this movie, Ralph?
It was completely realistic. I mean, dude, it was like they amplified so many stereotypes. It really reminded me a lot of some of the stuff I saw when I was in film school, where people just did stuff because they could, and like there's so many scenes in the movie that didn't fit, and it was just like, oh, I feel like I'm the director. I feel like putting this in the movie, and we put it in, and like, but why? There's no rhyme or reason, like, and there's so many parts, and I as you know, I see our breakdown, like, I know we're gonna cover a bunch of it, so I'm not gonna jump ahead, but it's really hard. It literally, and like, it's one of the few movies that really just it's like someone picked you up by the scruff of your neck and just dropped you into the movie. It's like, here you go, this is the movie. Because like that's how the movie starts. Like you're seeing things through the eyes of the Predator, and like it's cops and drug lords having a shootout in the middle of Los Angeles just for no reason. Like there's no reason given. I mean, obviously it's good guys versus bad guys, just like any other movie. But like it's the story of like a really bad '90s video game.
So one of the things that I was struggling with this movie was like, one, why did it have to be done in Los Angeles? Because they thought, oh, well, instead of it being an actual jungle, it could be a city, which that's in itself its own concrete jungle type of thing. But I just thought, well, first of all, yeah, I mean, I guess you could have done that. And then, of course, like you just said, all the stereotypes, the Colombians and the Jamaicans, I mean, they just really went heavy on that. Which for the 90s, this movie is a product of the 90s. That's the problem.
100%.
Yeah. So, yeah, as you know, that in the 90s, we had a lot of shitty, B-rated movies back then. But, yeah, so this movie, I think, was just a product of itself. And the fact that they couldn't get probably like Arnold Schwarzenegger to come back. They couldn't get. I mean, he was the only one that actually survived, really. So
Right. Yeah.
so it's not like they, it's not like they could get the chick that, that was in the first Predator to come back, because that's not going to attract anybody at the box office. So I think that it attracted, of course, they put Danny Glover in it, him coming off of the Lethal Weapon franchise, and he was a hot commodity back then. Of course, it didn't connect with a lot of people. A lot of people say, oh, it's not the same. But, there's a lot of things on it that I liked. There's a few things that I liked. A lot of it I didn't like. So I want to start with what worked in this movie before we go ahead and tear it up.
I was going to say, like, talking about the 90s. And, like, if this movie has me so jaded about the movies from the 90s that I forget, it wipes out any movies that were, like, I can't believe how many, like, fantastic movies came out in the 90s. Just because, like, between this and a couple of other, like, I think there's a couple other movies we might have done recently that, like, there's so many more movies that were money grabs in the 90s to get people to go to the theaters and, like, blockbusters and stuff like that, that you forget about some of the movies that came out in the 90s that were incredible. Like, just incredible movies, like Seven. So, Goodfellas, Seven, Fight Club, Good Will Hunting, Unforgiven, Braveheart, Forrest Gump, like, Pulp Fiction. You watch Predator and it's like nothing ever was good made in the 90s. And then you have to go back to actual history. I'm like, oh, no, never mind. I'll give the 90s a pass. And it's ironic because I just went to a concert that was the I Love the 90s tour, and it was a bunch of old school hip hop acts from the 90s. It was fantastic. Which you would know is Mr. Rob Van Winkle, Vanilla Ice.
Oh my God, for what was that?
It was I Love the 90s tour. It was a bunch of old school hip hop artists. It's a tour that they do every year. It's right. All different. It's all different. I think they changed like the lineups from year to year. But Vanilla Ice was the headliner. I went there because they had Tone Loc and Rob Bass, and I was like, I've always wanted to see Tone Loc since I was a kid, so I was like, perfect. I literally almost got up and left before Vanilla Ice took the stage, and I was like, nah, you know what? I'm here. I'll watch. And he, like, I tell you what, he won me back. He did a good job with this. He didn't rely too heavily on what got him to the dance, and he was actually pretty entertaining. But anyway, back to the Predator, which were in the 90s.
Well, yeah, no, it's the 90s were an interesting era. Not as bad, I think, as the 80s, because, well, the 80s has its own problems there. But but yeah, so I want to, so what we want to do is we want to break out this movie into like a beginning, middle, and end of what works and what doesn't work. So I want to start with the stuff that works in this movie. I thought in the beginning there were a few things. I liked the quote. There was a quote in the beginning where Danny Glover's character is being, reprimanded in the office.
Right.
And one of the quotes he says is, because they're telling him that the feds are going to be taking over this and that he can't do anything about it. And he goes, which means you're cutting off my dick and shoving it up my ass. And it just got to me because I was like, okay, that's an awesome quote. I kind of like that. But also I thought of the cocaine rage of the Colombians when he's grabbing
his face.
Yeah, he's grabbing the guns, and then he just puts the cocaine, and then all of a sudden he just see him like just raging. I thought that was just such a funny scene that I was like, all right, you know what? I'll keep that one. And then of course Bill Paxton. Bill Paxton's always, I think, even when he's done stupid movies, he's still a good, he's still entertaining to see.
This, and I went back and looked, and this was like really one of his first movies.
Was it really one of his first movies?
It's in like he didn't really come on until Twister, which was 6 years later. Like, he was in a bunch of stuff, but like he didn't really he wasn't Bill Paxton until 95, 96. He was in Apollo 13, Tombstone, 93.
Right.
And then obviously Indian Summer is one of his other more less known hits, but that's where people really caught on to him. Like Trespass was a movie I loved because, again, I'm real big into hip hop. Trespass was the movie with Ice-T back in 92.
Right.
But yeah, Predator 2, he was like, the only other stuff he was really in was Next to Kin. He played bit roles on TV shows, and Aliens in 1986. He was Private Hudson.
Well, here's the whole that right. But before that, he was in Commando, and I didn't know that. The first time I remember noticing him was in Weird Science, where
Yes,
I thought
Chet.
he was so funny as Chet. He was fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
But he actually came out in the Terminator. So
Yeah, but
he
that was a small role. That
Right.
wasn't him as a main actor.
But like I'm looking at his IMDb here, he actually came out in Stripes. He was Soldier number 8.
I mean, he was a lot older than I thought.
I'm gonna have to look at that. Soldier number 8. And then of course he was on Streets of Fire, Mortuary, which I guess is a some kind of horror film. But yeah, no, so those were, but I liked him in Aliens. I liked him in Near Dark. I thought he was great in Near Dark. So that's when I started noticing him in those small roles, and he was actually pretty cool to watch. So yeah, so I thought Bill Paxton worked on that. I don't know what in the beginning of this film actually worked for you.
No, nothing. It was so hard to get past that first section, man. There was nothing there that, like, that was the one great thing about the first one. Like, you didn't see the Predator or know anything about it until what, like halfway through the movie.
Right.
This was just like out the gate. Oh, it's a Predator, and stuff's happening, and there's just stuff getting shot, and then cocaine rage, and like it's just it's such a mishmash of nonsense. It's really tough, man.
And funny enough, because when you watch this movie, you say, okay, so there's some drug war going on, and it's just so 80s the way you see all this. You know what it reminded me of? You remember RoboCop?
Oh yeah.
It reminded me as if Paul Verhoeven, I can never pronounce his last name very well, did this movie in the beginning. It seemed like it could come from the world of RoboCop.
Yeah, 100%.
So
yeah, that's what's confusing. So like, if you stop by this, like if you're channel surfing and you stopped on this movie, you would not have any idea what movie it was.
No, exactly.
I would think it was like one of the Lethal Weapons every time. Like, it made no sense.
Yeah, I mean, it was very unusual. I think I remember when I first saw this movie, I thought it was, and they announced it. My thought was, all right, they're going to bring Arnold Schwarzenegger back somehow. Whatever the story is going to be, it's going to be great. And then next thing you know, I see Danny Glover, and I'm like, Danny Glover, are you serious? I mean, he's a great actor, and I love watching him in a lot of movies that he's done. But for the Predator franchise, I just thought that was a very unusual take on that. But and as a matter of fact, a lot of the characters, here's one of the things. Like, some of the characters work, some of the characters didn't work. So, like, for me, like I said, we'll get into, like, I just got into, what worked for me in this movie was, I thought Bill Paxton, he's a character that could have easily fit in the first movie.
Yeah. Because
the one thing the first movie does do very well is that it's a no-nonsense, testosterone-filled movie where, you got Arnold Schwarzenegger, you got Carl Weathers, you got Jesse Ventura, you got all these characters that are just bigger than life for some reason. And it is just them trying to be this macho type of fit. And I was okay with that, because it's like, all right, you know what? This is just a dumb action film with these big stars and stuff like that. This one here, I thought Bill Paxton kind of fit that character that could actually fit in the first movie.
Right.
The rest of the characters I didn't think could fit. Like Maria Conchita Alonso, I thought her part was horrible. And I think she's a good actress. It's just the dialogue was horrible. Ruben Blades, who is actually a singer in real life, I just didn't think that his part was that great. I didn't really feel anything for him when he died. Not the way you feel it for Blaine, from the first Predator. Not the way you feel, when the Native American Indian guy who just stands on the log and just kind of cuts himself on the chest. And you're saying to yourself, damn, we lost him too. So they got great characters that when they get offed by the predator, you kind of like, you're like, damn, man, I really wanted to see more of this character. Ruben Blades got offed and he was just like, whatever, And same thing with Bill Paxton. Bill Paxton, when he got killed, it was just one of those, oh, well, is what it is. So we could go back and forth. So in the beginning, like I said, what didn't work for me was, one, the dialogue. Gary Busey's shoulder pads fucking kill me. It's a product of the goddamn 90s and 80s. Well, coming off of the 80s, actually, because in the 80s, shoulder pads were a big thing back then. So here's a question. Did all the agents look like they went to the same secret agent store?
Yeah, there's some of the characters you couldn't tell apart.
They look so generic.
Yeah.
Same pants, same shirt, same glasses.
I didn't know this, but the movie was written in 3 weeks, and you can tell because it was pretty bad. There was not anything really original in it. It was the same people that wrote the first one, which is nuts.
That's what really gets to me, is the fact that they did such a great job with the first movie, and then the second movie, I think they dropped the ball so bad.
It was originally greenlit by the studio because the comic book did so well. That's a good sign. And then
what gets me is that the comic book actually was a great hit, because the comic book was originally done by Dark Horse, and when the comic book decided to do Alien versus Predator, that became a huge hit. That was a huge, those comic books are actually probably worth something right now, but that was in the comics, at least, bringing those two worlds. And the fact that you got to see it towards the end of the movie, that you see the Predator, the alien skull, that was actually pretty cool. So yeah, that was a way to actually bring both worlds together.
Yeah, and like they were saying, like, Schwarzenegger was supposed to be in it, and the reason he wasn't was because of a contract dispute.
Yeah, it was a dispute for $20,000 or something.
No, $250,000, but like $250,000.
Was it $250,000 or something like that?
By then, like, that's a lot of money back then. But even by the standards of who you were getting for it, is nothing.
Do you know that the original Predator was going to be Jean-Claude Van Damme?
Yes, yeah, I do remember that.
I'm like, Jean-Claude Van Damme is actually short. So yeah, they got this Kevin Peter Hall to be the Predator. What's sad about it is that Kevin Peter Hall actually died after Predator 2. So he was past 7 feet, and it's the one reason I would say that the Predator has always looked good, was because of him being so tall that the head seemed to match the rest of the body. If you notice, like the other movies, the head always seems so damn big compared to the body itself that it actually looks comical. In the beginning, the one thing that didn't work for me, the dialogue. Like I said, Gary Busey's shoulder pads I didn't like. All the agents looked the same. I swear to God, they looked like they were just cloned. Maria Conchita Alonso's part was horrible, I think. I think her dialogue was horrible. Not very good in this movie. And the Jamaican stereotypes were just bad. The voodoo stuff, the outfits, all that stuff was just so bad. And they did the same thing with the Colombians. The way they portrayed both groups in today's world would not have been a good thing. So what worked for me in the middle of this movie, I would say one of the cool things that I thought was really cool was the weapons of the Predator. So they showed more weapons. Right. This time, as opposed to the first movie. In the first movie, all you had was the laser turret, or that blaster that he has on his shoulder, the shoulder blaster. And he had the Wolverine claws. Right? So in this one, he had that net that he throws out, and it can actually, probably just cube you or something like that, because it's supposed to squeeze you to the point where it'll actually you'll have little bits and pieces coming through the net holes. And the spear I thought was pretty cool, and the hand axe that he has, or that blade that is round and is supposed to be some kind of I guess smart weapon or something like that. So I thought that was actually pretty cool.
His death frisbee.
The death frisbee. There you go. So, Adam Baldwin. What do we think of him? I always liked Adam. I think out of all the Baldwins, besides Alec Baldwin, Adam Baldwin has always been very good at playing a bad guy. And he did exactly, what he's good at in this movie, which is being the enforcer behind Gary Busey's character Keys, Agent Keys.
Yeah, he was one of the few characters I didn't have a problem with.
Right.
He didn't seem out of place. He played the role well. And I don't think there's really much you could write wrong for that character. So, it was pretty generic. But, it's the only thing you really... there's lots you can point to in this movie that was that's a bad choice, and this wasn't put in the right spot, or this person wasn't the right person to act in this role.
Right.
He's one of the things that... It's not like it's a shining star spotlight. It's not a role you write home about and hey, I was in this movie and this is what I did. No. But he's one of the things in the movie that there's not really anything you could negatively say from it. But it is a shining star amongst the train wreck that was Predator 2.
The Predator, done by the same actor as the first one, because he's so tall, right? So this tall character with the prosthetics that he has to wear, the head of the Predator seemed to be in scale with the rest of the body. That's why I always thought that even though this movie I thought was horrendous, but the Predator for me worked because of that, because of the actor itself. After the actor passed away, and then of course they went into Alien versus Predator and all that stuff. All the Predators look very stocky, with gigantic heads. And I think the biggest mistake they did was they were trying to put so many servos inside the mask in order for the mandibles to actually be able to open and for them to, control it and all this stuff, with radio, with these radio remote controlled units that can control that. It just didn't look right. It was just so those heads look so big compared to the body that you're it doesn't make any sense. But when you look at this Predator, he just seems a lot leaner. Seems a lot more what I would call of that hunter type look, which is more athletic compared to the other movies. And that's the one thing I feel that the new movie Prey got very well was the way they did the Predator outfit and makeup and everything. I thought was very well done. So yeah, I like the Predator on that, and I like when they showed him cleaning the skull. It's a little more grisly, but I did actually like that.
Yeah, well, apparently a lot of the stuff they had to cut out a lot of stuff because of the new rating system. I read something about it that the rating system was changing just months before this was supposed to be released. So instead, back then, when in 1990 when the movie came out, obviously a movie that was too violent or over the top with nudity or whatever was rated X. They changed it to NC-17, and obviously, as you know, the only movie that was NC-17 rated that probably ever made any kind of money was Showgirls, because of how people just went to go see it because it was NC-17, but people walked out of the movie. They were like, this is awful, but they still spent the money to go see it because it was NC-17. But that left such a bad taste in people's mouths. So, the producers that were making Predator were like, hey, no, you can't. We're not releasing this under NC-17. You got to cut it. And they had to cut it 20 something times to get it down to a rating, the R rating. And that's probably part of the, not for nothing. I'll give them a little bit of a pass on it. Maybe that's one of the reasons why this movie was so bad, but writing the movie in 3 weeks is another reason. There's no way you can write a good movie in 3 weeks. You can't even write a good commercial in 3 weeks.
Well, there have been movies, I think, that they have been written in a very short amount of time, and they still turned out to be pretty good. I like the score for Predator, and all they did was reuse the score from the first movie. The score was just exactly the same for Predator as it was for Predator 2. The composer was Alan Silvestri, and they just reused his score for the first movie. And granted that there are certain things about that score which is really cool, and I have liked the fact that all the movies have tried to put a little bit of the original score into those movies, but this one was just like, hey, let's put the whole thing in there in places where it didn't even make sense. But yeah, so that, I mean, but I still liked it. I still like, because I really liked that score. So now we get to what didn't work in this movie, the middle part of the movie, and there's a lot. The disgruntled cop, trope, where he just, just does whatever the fuck he wants, and then just, and blatantly disregards orders and things like that. I think that's another product of the 90s, especially with like Lethal Weapon. You had, so many different movies out there that always had that disgruntled cop that, the cop that wants to go do his own thing.
The society problems that they put in this film for no reason. They were really trying to put a lot of square pegs in the round holes.
Right.
Yeah, I wasn't. Yeah, they're and oh, Morton Downey Jr.
Oh my God!
Why was he in the movie? Why?
Well, Morton Downey Jr. back then had a popular show. And I remember when we saw him in the movie, we were like, holy shit, look who it is. Because it fit the type of, it just fit. He was doing the exact same thing on his own show, being very over dramatic.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was so horrible in this movie. It's like, when you look at it now, you're like, oh my God. So the backdrop of Los Angeles being the jungle that they, I thought maybe like New York would have been a better, if they were going to do a city, either New York or do a city that's actually next to a jungle. But Los Angeles was just not, to me, the place to do it. I mean, honestly, it was just a name. There was nothing very distinctive about it, so it could have been any city, and it would have been what it is. So the way they portrayed voodoo on this was just very funny. I mean,
but let's go to the voodoo part. Like, that was one of that I was talking to you earlier. Like, that was the scene, I think, that I fell asleep right after that one of the times I was watching it, and like it caused me to have night terrors. Because like they broke into the apartment with the guy like banging his girlfriend or whoever she was,
right?
And then they started doing the ritual on him. Yeah, that's one of those scenes I'm talking about. Like, it was so unnecessary to have that.
It was such an over the top scene. First of all, I mean, she was a crazy screamer, right? And then, of course, but it's funny as you see the actress, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember '90s Bush.
Yeah.
So, but but that being said, it was over the top. It was just it was just their excuse, I think, just to have some naked chick in the scene there.
And then when she was sitting next to after they had the guy tied up, and she looked like Princess Leia sitting next to Jabba the Hutt, like on the floor naked.
I know, right?
Oh, it's awful. We have a survivor. Oh, she was probably like, I just kill me now.
What do you think of the Highlander scene with the Predator? Like, so when the Predator took the skull and spine, and then he climbs the wall like if he's King Kong on the side of the Empire State Building, and then he has the spear and he reaches up in the sky and he growls and everything, and then all of a sudden a bolt of lightning hits him, and I'm like, what the fuck is this, like Highlander?
Yeah, it's yet again another. They probably they could have got Arnold for the $250,000 if they didn't do special effects that meant nothing to the storyline.
Exactly. I mean, I was like, well, so hold on, so a shotgun could bring him down, but a bolt of lightning, no, that's okay.
Or the water malfunctions his tech,
Yeah.
the sprinkler system, but he can get hit by lightning and he's fine. Yeah, no, that's
And
okay.
he's fine with that. So, all the guns in LA or, at this time have scopes and lasers. I mean, first of all, every gun that I saw everybody have either had a scope on the top or a laser on the bottom, and they were huge. And then Danny Glover's carrying a Desert Eagle, which is a gigantic gun to have as a side piece for a cop, especially an undercover cop.
Yeah, well, dude, no, let's not glaze over his trunk of shit that he has. he had a goddamn grenade launcher in his trunk, dude. Like, I know, like high-ranking cops that don't even have like more than a shotgun and an extra pistol in their trunk. He had a goddamn grenade launcher.
Well, if you work
it's L.A.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say if you work in LA, I guess it's a thing that you have to have.
That was my favorite part, the grenade launcher.
And talking about guns, everybody in this scene of the subway, everybody has a gun. It's like, come on, man! It seems like it's one of those scenes that has been overdone so much, where like all the citizens are also packing heat. That when I looked at it, I was like, oh okay. Everybody has a gun. Okay. Sure.
They probably really did because they found a dead body while they were shooting it.
Did they really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
That was one of the stories I read. Like during shooting, they found a dead body. So they're like, yeah, we're going to start carrying heat with us, everybody.
Yeah. So here's a question. Why would the Predator go into the subway and follow Lambert and Leona?
Why wouldn't he?
Why? I mean...
Nothing else in this movie makes sense. Why wouldn't he?
Like it just didn't it didn't make any sense. Why would he go ahead and go into a subway cart to look for these two people? It just, I don't know. It was just kind of like because normally, I mean, if he wants to hunt, I believe is Danny Glover, but not the others that I'm aware of, or at least it didn't show it to be that way. But I guess it is. So, but yeah, no, it was, it to me, it didn't make any sense. So all the agents are whites. I guess the FBI or whatever agency, does not have any, Latin people or black people working for the agency. They're all white and they're almost all blonde, I think.
I mean, yeah, you're only 26 years past Jim Crow laws ending. So, everybody just, it was only 2 decades past people sharing water fountains. Why wouldn't we have integrated special CIA forces?
Right? So no, they were all white. They all looked the same. The only one, Baldwin was the only one that actually had dark brown hair. Everybody else had light brown hair, if not blonde. I was like, is this like the Third Reich of of the agency or something? So I was like, okay. Here's the other thing. Why would the Predator give off pheromones?
So I don't know. I go ahead. Because I can't wait to get to the next part that you're going to talk about.
My understanding is, like with anything in nature, pheromones are usually there for mating.
Right.
So why would he, if he's hunting, why is he just giving off pheromones and that's how they're tracking him is through his pheromones? That did not make any sense whatsoever. It just didn't make sense. It was just one of those. I think it was like technically it just wasn't one of those things where. I mean, look, the whole thing about we could see him in ultraviolet or something like that, or he could only see in infrared. I thought that it was cool the fact that they showed him seeing in different types of spectrums. So infrared, ultraviolet, he was trying to see in X-ray. I think it was X-ray, or I don't know. But he was trying to see in all these different spectrums, which is what they didn't know about. But yeah, the pheromone thing is like, well, he has this active camouflage, but he could track him, but through his pheromones.
Technically, the pheromones could be just sweat. So I mean, it could make sense at that juncture, like because he is hoofing it around during the biggest heat wave in LA and jumping up and down buildings. So he's probably sweating a lot.
Okay, I mean, I could accept that. They should have said something, though.
I'll give them a pass on that.
Yeah, I'll give them a pass on that. So, the Predator is hunting Danny Glover. And at one point, the Predator takes his telescoping spear, throws it at him, right? Misses. And then Danny Glover has the chance to get the spear. But instead of stabbing him, he just pushes him off the roof. A missed opportunity?
Well, you wouldn't have the super awesome bathroom scene. That made no fucking sense.
Well, let's talk about that. So, first, the Predator falls in the bathroom, right? And makes a shitload of noise. And the lady that's next door in her bedroom only hears him when he cries out when he's actually trying to apply, first aid to himself. I'm like, so you're telling me the crashing through the wall did not wake you up, but him, yelling actually did. So I was like, oh, okay. I don't know. I think normal people would have heard something crashing through the wall, but okay, let's give it that. But my biggest thing of all that was plaster and tile do something for first. Is there something I don't know about? Can I take plaster and tile and melt it together to?
Yeah, it makes a miracle epoxy. Let's back up though for a second. If like how like in your in my shower I have one of those like caddy things that holds like the shampoo and stuff like that.
Right.
Every once in a while, I have like the stuff like I used to use this body wash that used to come with the stuff that they had the suction cups that stuck to the wall and you put the body wash that. If one of those things fell off the wall in the bathroom, I'd about shit myself and I'd have to investigate my whole house to make sure nothing was falling apart. Meanwhile, a 7-foot tall predator falls into your bathroom and you don't think to go, hey, what's going on? So yeah,
that's what I'm saying. They didn't hear that, but they hear it when it cries out when he's applying, his plaster and tile.
Yeah, tile and broken Neosporin and like blue jizz juice that makes it all melt together to cauterize his wound. I sat there and I'm like, there's probably parts of the movie that I just stopped paying attention, and I was like, maybe it's something I missed. But I'm like, I don't think it is though. There's no, the only thing I could,
it's Space Vicks Vapor Rub.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is like from a technical aspect, being I've done contract work, is like maybe because the mirror is basically sand particles compressed, and then the tile and other stuff you can make into a compound that can seal off the wound, but like that's reaching. That's like having to know what the materials are broken down into, not like everyday people that would like.
Holy shit, dude! You're really reaching out there, aren't you?
Yeah.
Because to me, it makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, no, man. Oh my god.
So, the ending of this movie is actually probably the only thing that was probably the best part of the movie. So one of the things I liked about the ending, like the ship, I thought was really cool, and the fact that we got to see inside the ship of the Predator for the first time was really awesome. Had a very Aztec or Mayan kind of look to it, but somewhat alien to at the same time.
Right.
So I thought that was pretty cool. The reveal of the alien skull was, let me tell you, I remember when I first saw this in the movie theaters and we saw that, people cheered the shit out of that. Because they're like, oh my God, that means that they could possibly, and that was a fantasy, but possibly would do a movie with an alien and a predator in it. And of course, a few years later, we did get that. But
a few years, it was almost 20. It was so. When did Alien vs Predator come out?
Just the other day. But yeah, no,
right.
exactly.
It was so long. 2004, so 14 years.
14 years. Yeah, exactly. But the other thing that I really liked was all the other predators, which was a really cool thing, cool scene to see, is like all these different type of predators, and they weren't as different from each other. Slightly, one taller than the other, or the equipment was a little bit different, but they were all basically part of the same, what I would call tribe, that made them actually look pretty good. So I thought that was actually pretty cool. One thing I did not make sense is, why was there so much fucking fog in the ship?
I think that had to do with probably budget, and they probably lost a lot, because you could tell, like, especially on that very last scene, the very last predator walking off, and they were showing him walking off, like, it was really bad. Like there wasn't, like, they tried doing CGI, and it was really, really bad.
Well, it wasn't CGI. It was all green screen, and it was just the mat around the predator, going around it in order to actually, make it disappear into like the fog. Just wasn't done right very well, But yeah, no, it was just, I was always wondering, why is there so much fog in this ship?
Yeah, I think they did that to cover up some of the set design, and probably some of the.
Oh, I'm sure there was, but it just
effects
didn't
they were
make
doing.
any sense. I was like, were they just having a rave or something? And
Yeah.
all of a sudden they got interrupted. So and then
Apparently,
they
had a dance party after after they were done shooting that scene.
They what?
There's a Predator 2 dance. They did a video, like a dance party video.
See, I would have loved to have seen that.
Oh, you can see it. Just put Predator and Danny Glover dancing on the set, and it shows up on YouTube.
Here's another thing about, things that I feel like didn't work in this movie. So you revealed yourself, right? All these predators reveal themselves to, the character of Danny Glover. Everybody comes off of their, camouflage, technology and stuff like that. They carry away the other one, but then you see them all go back to hiding, and I'm like, why are you hiding? Normally the camouflage is done when you're actually hunting your prey or something like that. For some reason, everybody had to go back to not being seen. I mean, when they're interacting with each other, are they invisible to each other? You understand what I'm saying? So I didn't know why that had to be that. Like, why did all of a sudden they start disappearing again? Because if they just kind of went through all the doors, and the whole fog effect with the camouflage would not look so bad. And so here's the other thing. No one in LA saw this ship land.
Yeah.
Because it was right next to some kind of like, overpass or freeway or something like that. So you're telling me nobody saw this come in. First of all, the ship was huge. And then when it leaves, the trail that it leaves on the ground, I don't know if you noticed, was like maybe 6 feet apart. But when you look at that ship in one of the scenes, that thing looks like it's like 40 feet, wide.
Right. Yeah. Again, the juxtaposition of that versus anything making sense in this movie. Dude, this video, the fact that they made this movie and they got this 2-minute video out of it is probably the best thing to come from it. You've never seen it, and it's been almost 30 years, Rob. Oh my god, it's been 30 years. Holy shit.
Yes.
Yeah, so apparently they did this after they filmed that scene on the ship, and Danny Glover's in it too. And it's, oh my god. If anybody that's listening to the podcast, I never knew this existed. You must watch it just to validate the reason you ever saw this movie in the first place.
I'm gonna have to actually do that. So yeah, any thoughts on any final thoughts on the movie itself?
No, I mean, honestly, like we normally do, like the and I think we still have that as part of our thing. But like,
Yeah.
I don't think doing a fantasy pick. I don't think there's anything that could have really saved this other than given the writing more time. I think 3 weeks is a bit shy, to say the least, to get a full fleshed out. I think there's hour and 40 minutes. And it was a tough hour and 40 minutes. Like, and you know me, man, like one of our previous podcasts was the Crystal Skull. And I can tell you, I've watched that 2 or 3 times. And as bad as that can be, it's still not painful to sit through.
Oh no, I mean this was pretty bad. I've seen this movie already maybe like 3 or 4 times in the last couple of weeks, trying to get as much information as I wanted to get out of this, and I was like, wow, this is tough to watch, man. So, but and it's funny because it's actually getting like a what I would call a cult following, but yeah, it's still pretty bad. So one thing that, like you were saying, is changing the movie and us doing our fantasy picks, would it do any better? So before we get to the actors, here's my thing. Do you think the story would have been better if they would have stayed in the jungle the way they did the other one? Because in the first movie, the prisoner that they had, the girl, Anna, she says at one point that every year when it gets really hot, they find their men butchered. So it means that the predators are always coming back to the jungle because, of course, it's that hot.
Right.
So should they have left it in the jungle, or would another, I would say, type of environment would have been better than the city? I mean, I think a city was just too, I don't know. It's 109, okay. So, but you would think a predator want to be smart and not try to do this, where it could be seen or something like that.
Right.
So do you think that it going back to the jungle would have been a good thing?
No, because then you would have had the people would have saw it as being the same old thing, just with a different cast at that point versus
right.
I don't know. I don't think that change of scenery would have done anything. Because I liked, like, I think it was Predators that did it. That they were kind of like in a Midwest type place, right? If I remember correctly, in Predators, it was like more of a country setting.
In Predators, or
the last one that came out with like the super giant predator guy.
Oh, The Predator. That's the one with Olivia Munn in it.
Yes.
Yeah, that was like in the suburbs.
So,
which that's another movie that we'll probably cover here. But there's just so much bad with that movie. But
yeah, but I honestly like, and that'll be a good juxtaposition is to see, like, because like I take it back because we did Fantastic Four and that was pretty rough too. That was oh crap. God, we're making a lot of friends out in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Like, even Fantastic Four. The thing with Fantastic Four, just to give a quick, just like apples to apples comparison, was the beginning had a lot of promise and it took you along the story. This, like I said, like when we were first talking about it, like, this kind of just took you and dropped you off, and it's like, hey, this is a movie, have fun, and just left you there. It said, figure it out. Like,
well, what about, like, let's say if the predator or Dutch hunts the predator this time. So Dutch is now the one out there in the jungle looking for these predators and looking to see, like, like we go 10 years later, because this movie is actually set 10 years after the events of the first Predator. So we could have done something like 10 years later. We see Dutch probably, he's out of the service. He's pretty much, a mercenary, but he's actually going out into the jungle looking for these things. And every time, he probably looks worldwide to see where is the hottest place in what jungle. and he will go there to try to see if he could hunt these things. And I think that would have been really good, where he has, for the last 10 years, been dedicating his life to try to hunt these things down. And probably for 10 years, he's probably looked at as the crazy person that, is looking for aliens, and he finally finds it.
I'm already looking on the AMC app where to pick my seat for that movie.
So I think that would have been a really good movie.
Yeah.
Or you could do something like where, we probably catch a predator like we did with, well, that was actually the Predators, where we caught a predator and then the other predators wasn't trying to rescue it, it's trying to kill it. But in this case, probably trying to rescue it, or maybe the predators are trying to hunt Dutch because they know Dutch is the one that actually killed the first one, and they think that he is a worthy prey or something like that. So, I mean, do that, or shit, have Dutch, I don't know, somehow become part of a predator clan. That would be pretty cool. All of a sudden you see Arnold Schwarzenegger in, the predator armor, because of now he becomes one of them or something like that.
Listen, I'm going to give you 4 weeks. You write the script.
And then the one thing they could have done, I think, for the second movie, which nowadays nowadays you could see them doing this. It's to introduce a small origin of the Predators. At least some kind of flashback, or part of the first part of the movie shows you where they come from, or the evidence that they have been, but so here's a question. Out of all the actors, our first thought is, of course, bring back Arnold Schwarzenegger. But if we didn't bring him back, what other actor besides Danny Glover you think could have actually pulled off the lead in this movie? I have a few. I thought of Stallone, but Stallone would probably never do, especially in the 90s, would have never done a sequel to an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie because they were always competing with each other. But that being said, do you think Stallone as a lead in this movie would work?
No, God, no.
No? Okay. How about somebody like Mel Gibson?
Just get Joe Pesci in there, just do the whole cast from Lethal Weapon.
That would have still been a better movie than what we saw.
Supposedly that there two of the people that were in the running for it. One was Patrick Swayze. And
really?
Yeah.
I was going to put him on the list, but I just thought that Patrick Swayze was too, what I would say...
Steven Seagal was the other one.
Yeah, but the thing with Steven Seagal is that next thing you know, he has to martial arts the Predator, and he doesn't get hurt whatsoever, or because the whole thing with with Steven Seagal has always been that he'll kick people's asses, but he always comes out of it unhurt, unscathed, or whatever it is, and it's like, come on. And that would be the same thing with the Predator. I mean, it would be horrible.
Can we do Out for Justice on the podcast? That's one of my favorite Steven Seagal movies. I want to go back and watch it and see how bad it actually is. I'll just never forget that as long as I live, because that movie came out when I was probably like either 8 or let's go to the tape, folks. When did Out for Justice come out?
So while Ralph is looking for Out for Justice in the year it came out, and how about Kurt Russell? I think Kurt Russell,
that would be a good one. So
I could see Kurt Russell doing at least a Kurt Russell from 1990s. I could see him doing a Predator movie. I think that would have been cool. Or Bruce Willis, which he will bring in a little bit of comedy into it, just like he did with Die Hard.
So yeah, so for the listeners at home, Out for Justice came out in 1991. So we should go by years now. So this is 1990. So we'll do a movie from 91, 92 all the way up. But my 11-year-old self, 12-year-old self loved that movie, because I especially loved the part where he took the cue ball off the pool table and wrapped it in the towel and started beating people with it.
So what do you think? Bruce Willis, Kurt Russell, and if we have to have the token black guy there, how about Wesley Snipes?
He would have been a little young for that, wouldn't he?
No, Wesley Snipes was already an action star during the 90s.
What about a young Lawrence Fishburne?
I don't know. He didn't have the star appeal at that time. Like the list I'm giving you are people that are like always been well known as action stars.
Yeah.
Somebody like Lawrence Fishburne, while a phenomenal actor, I mean, he didn't have that gravitas for being a action star back then.
He also had morals. He's like, yeah, I'm not doing that movie.
I don't know. I think I would pick like out of the six that I put in there. So you got, if we can't have Arnold, then I have Stallone, Mel Gibson, Bruce Willis, Kurt Russell, or Wesley Snipes. That to me is one. Out of those, I think Kurt Russell.
I'd agree.
Would have pulled it off pretty well. John Travolta as Agent Keys. Because John Travolta does really good bad guys. Or asshole guys. And I think he would have done awesome in that spot. That or Christopher Walken. And Christopher Walken, that shit would have just been too funny.
I don't know, back then, I mean, if it's whatever decade that we're taking them from, like, I think Val Kilmer
we're going back to the
90s.
So yeah, I grabbed all these guys from the 90s, like what was available in the 90s and who was available in the 90s that would, that was still, they were famous, making movies that made money, things like that. So
Christopher Walken's he's always insane. So and that's like in the 90s before he was like funny, like SNL guy.
Right.
So it's kind of hard to take Christopher Walken seriously after like SNL and all the comedic roles he played.
Well, yeah, but Gary Busey, I mean, when you look at him in this movie, he is kind of crazy and comical almost. I mean, he's
yeah, but I think we have it sucks because we know how much of a crazy person he turned out to be.
Yeah,
as he got older. So,
but no, I think something. Yeah, I mean, out of those, or somebody like Val Kilmer.
Yeah, I think Val Kilmer back then, I think would be just too smooth for it. You need some more rough edges.
How about him as Lambert? The part that Bill Paxton was playing.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, so and then maybe like Jennifer Lopez as Leona.
I do like you have a really super awesome typo for one of the names. Because I had to sit there and figure it out. I was like, who the hell is that? And I was like, oh, it didn't autocorrect the name right.
Oh, yeah, because it's supposed to be, yeah. Because I had that and then Vivica A. Fox. Yeah, I don't know why I said, yeah.
Civics A. Fox. I was like, what's going on here?
But, I mean, so look, Jennifer Lopez, if we have to keep the Latina woman in there, right. Vivica A. Fox. So if I'm gonna have somebody like Kurt Russell and I have to have the token, African American person in there, then I will have Vivica A. Fox in there, or the '90s Natasha Hendrich, which back then she was very famous, gorgeous woman. She always played in these B movies and things like that. So.
Yeah, and then her career was ruined by U-Ball, which we've spoke about on another podcast previously.
Exactly. So
that son of a bitch.
Antonio Banderas as Lambert?
Yeah, he's too good for this movie. Leave
you think so?
Yeah.
I think
he was doing Desperado back then. When did he do Desperado?
I'm not sure. But he in one of the movies, what was it, for The Expendables? When Antonio Banderas came out on that he was just this funny, he wants to be a part of the team and stuff like that. But who knows? I mean, my pick again, Kurt Russell in the part, I think I will have John Travolta as Keys. I will have Jennifer Lopez. You know what? Jennifer Lopez, not Jennifer Lopez. I would have Vivica A. Fox because she seemed more like the type that would do this type of movie. And I would probably have Val Kilmer do Lambert.
Okay.
At least that's what I think I would do. What will you do? Or what other actors do you think,
I would say Kurt Russell. I would say Christopher Walken as Keys. Maybe Travolta as Lambert.
Travolta as Lambert? That would be interesting.
Leona, I'm not too hung up on it. You can put anybody in that spot.
Who?
The Leona character. I think any of those three would work fine. I agree with you on the Latino part. Like keep it that way, and Jennifer Lopez.
Okay.
It's part of the heritage of the character. But yeah, that's what I would go. I mean, it's just, I think, I don't want to get, what else? Who was the director of this movie?
Director of this movie was Stephen Hopkins.
He did Lost in Space, which wasn't terrible in 98. He did Nightmare on Elm Street 5, which is pretty bad, but I'm a sucker for those movies.
So, okay. So, Stephen Hopkins also did Highlander. That explains the Highlander part with the Predator getting lightning from, from the sky.
Where do you see that?
It in his filmography, Stephen Hopkins in 1986 did Highlander as a second unit director. Not as a director, but as a second unit director. But I bet you that second unit part was like, hey, I have a really good idea. So we're going to have McLeod just, when he gets the quickening, he gets lightning, and stuff like that. So
that's wild.
Alrighty. So, yeah. So that is, our take on this movie. Again, a movie that, when it first came out, and with the success of Predator and what that movie did, people were very anxious to see a second version of this movie. And it was something that we were not prepared for because, one, we thought that the original actor, Arnold Schwarzenegger, was going to come back, and he didn't. But then it was just set in a completely different environment with a completely different cast. And I think that's where it failed for a lot of the moviegoers out there, that it wasn't fun. Also, this was not a fun movie like the first movie. I thought the first movie was a lot of fun. This was not. The dialogue, again, really bad dialogue. And like you were saying, this was actually a script that was done in 3 weeks. So probably not that much effort put into it just to try to get a movie out and make money out of it. Unfortunately, all the other Predator movies pretty much follow suit, where, even though one of them came out almost 20 years later, it was still pretty bad with the Aliens versus Predator. And then the second version of that. And then Predators, which was actually done with a whole different cast, of course, but that was done in a different planet. That one wasn't as bad. And that one actually had Lawrence Fishburne, the way you the one that you picked for our fantasy cast.
Man.
But yeah, so that was an okay movie that, and it has some good potentials there and everything. The Predator, which had Olivia Munn, and it had a different cast, which was trying to capture the same thing as the first original Predator. horrible movie also, with the predator dogs, and the only one that knows how to do actually science there is a autistic kid. I thought that was a bit of a stretch with that one, and then of course the only movie that has been praised, and the only movie that has actually been almost compared to the first movie in terms of quality and you know, just a fun movie, has been the movie Prey that came out in Hulu. So that's our take on it. Let me know if you guys out there, let me know what you think of Predator 2. Did you like our picks? Who would you pick? And what story would you have thought it would have been a better sequel than what we got here? Let me hear what you guys think. So you can actually find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever podcast player of your choices. And if you want to do a rating, if a rating is available, just give us a rating, which always helps out the podcast. So yeah, if you guys want to let us know what your pick is or what you thought of our picks, you can always reach us as fantasypicksmovieedition@gmail.com. So that's all I got for today. How about you, Ralph?
I think we have put a nice little bow on it. If you guys are sadistic and want to make me suffer more through movies like Predator, please let us know what your thoughts are and give us a rating and tell us what you think would make me super miserable to sit and watch and have to review.
All right, guys. So that's our show for today, and we will catch you on the next one.
Thanks, everybody.